place. Several stories that make up a little riddle for us. Mullah Nasruddin, that mystical joker, was sitting with a group of his students when they said to him, "Mullah, Mullah, the fair has come to town. Can we go?" And the mullah said, "Yes, this is a time and place where something can be demonstrated to you." So the mullah and his students went off to the fair, and the mullah went straight to that booth where they had set up all of the targets with the bullseyes in the center. And that place where you let your arrow fly and hit the bullseye, you would get a prize, like a stuffed animal or something like that. But of course, all the townspeople knew Mullah Nasruddin. So when they saw him standing at the booth, about to take the bow and arrow in his hands, they all gathered around. Of course, some of them didn't like the mullah. That's the way of it, masters. Some people like them and some people don't. But all the townspeople gathered around to watch the mullah fire his arrows. Well, the mullah strutted up to where the arrow was to be shot and took the bow in his hand and let it fly. And it went way past the target and way to the back, and everybody laughed. And of course those who didn't like the mullah, they were having a little derisive smile on their faces. Well, you know, he's having a comeuppance, isn't he? And of course his students were all very embarrassed for him. And of course there was much conversation going on between them. The mullah said, "Silence! Silence!" That was a demonstration of a man who is cocky and overconfident in life. So he went up to the booth again, took another arrow, fumbled around a little bit, let the arrow go, and it dropped down right in front of the target. Everybody laughed again. "Silence," he said. That was a demonstration of a wishy-washy man. No confidence in life. Then the mullah looked around casually, took up the other arrow, straight in the bullseye. So he was about to go over and choose his stuffed animal when someone in the crowd said, "Mullah, Mullah, tell us, who was that?" "Oh," said the mullah, "that was me." Then there was a prince. He wanted to be the best marksman in the land. He wanted to be a master of the bow and arrow. So he sought out the greatest master, archer, that he could find to come under his tutelage. So the prince stayed with this master for several years, and after several years he was indeed a master of the bow and arrow. So it was time for him to leave the master and go back to his kingdom. Well, when he was on his way, he had to pass a certain village. But when he came to this village, there was a row of barns. There must have been at least 100 barns. And on the side of every barn, there was a target with a bullseye with an arrow right in the middle. The prince looked and he said, "What marksman is this? Even on my best day, I could never hit those bullseyes dead in the middle. Not like that. I want to meet this archer. So he got down from his horse and he was just about to go over and find someone who would be able to point him to this fellow, when one of the young boys from the village came by and asked the prince who he was looking for. And the prince said, I want to meet this archer. I want to meet this man who can hit all of those bullseyes. And the boy began to laugh. He said, oh, that's our town idiot, our town fool. The prince said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, he fires the arrow and then he draws the bullseye around in the target. This is the riddle. The riddle. But then there's a story of a young man in a time and place long ago. But this young man had a fire in his belly and a fire in his head, which never gave him rest. And sometimes it would be the fire in his belly that raised itself up. And when it did, it caused him to do outrageous things. And when it was the fire in his head, he would say outrageous things, so that the people in the town shunned him. Some said he was a ne'er-do-well. Some said that he was mad. But he had no friends. No one would become his companion. So, feeling like an outcast, the young man decided to leave that place. And when he did, he found himself having to pass through a dense forest, through which there was no pathway. But when he made his way between the trees, there appeared in front of him a narrow track. So he began to follow this track, and it led him up through the trees, up to a small hill. And when he traversed that hill and came round the other side, he came to a clearing. And when he entered that clearing, he saw that there was a small hut. But around the hut, there were bears and deers and rabbits and foxes, birds in the trees of all kinds. And stepping into the clearing, he felt a great sense of harmony. And then he saw him, the old man. His hair was all matted and his beard was very long. He was leaning on a stick. When the old man saw the young man approaching, all of a sudden a great smile came on his face, and he thought, ah, this is the one I've been waiting for. But the young man approached him and told the old man, I have this fire in my belly. I have this fire in my head. And I can feel and see the harmony, the serenity, the bliss that you have. Please, 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 will you teach me? Ah, said the old man, I too had a fire in my belly and a fire in my head. Stay with me a while. there will be a time and a place. So the young man became the companion of the old hermit. The old hermit told him, "You will have to help me to gather wood and clean and hoe the garden and bring water." The young man readily agreed to this, and it was his duty every day to undertake these tasks. It became a ritual for him, carrying the water, bringing the wood, stirring the soup. And after some time, the fire in his belly began to subside. And when it did, he suddenly noticed it. And then he said to the old hermit, well, when are you going to teach me? "Well, wait," said the old man. "It's a matter of time and place." So the young man continued with his tasks, undertaking the rituals day by day. And he found that the fire in his head began to subside. And he realized, oh. And he wondered. So he asked the old man again, "When are you going to teach me?" And again the old man said, "There will be a time and a place." And time passed, as time does. And the young man grew to love the old hermit. Love. The fire had gone. His heart was peaceful. His mind at rest. And something happened. Love. There was no name known to him for this feeling. So he again related it to teaching. "When are you going to teach me?" And again, the same answer. There will be a time and place. Time passed again. And one day, as the autumn was coming down, the leaves were turning, there was need for a fire. The old hermit and now the mature young man were sitting by the fire, and he had a dim recollection. Oh, fire! Fire! And so he asked the old man, "Master, why is it you have never taught me?" And the old man said, "Oh." And he took off his straw sandal and tapped the young man on his head and said, "Oh, you mean this? This is the time and place." That night, the old hermit passed away. The next day, as was the pattern over those years, the young man went to take water from the pond nearby. And when he looked into that pond, the reflection that was there for him was the face of the old hermit. Time and place. What is the deep meaning of this? The answer still remains for you to bring forth and share.